the morning of September 3rd, 1940. 6:15 in the morning, Sacramento River Canyon, Shasta County, Northern California. The sun wasn't fully over the ridgeline yet, but the heat was already there. That dry, red dirt Northern California heat that settled into the canyon and didn't leave until long after dark. The air smelled of diesel exhaust, granite dust, and the faint copper scent of the river working its way around the cofferdam downstream. Across the construction site, the sounds were already layered on top of each other. The clatter of the 9.6-mile Goodyear conveyor belt grinding aggregate toward the mixing plant, the distant thud of compressors, the scraping rhythm of steel tracks on broken rock. A man named Roy Callahan climbed up into the cab of a Caterpillar DE8 Serial 1H series, set his boots against the footrests, and fired the two-cylinder gasoline starting engine. It coughed. It caught. The main D13000 diesel turned over, a deep rhythmic compression sound, black smoke punching out of the exhaust stack once, twice, and then settling into its steady working idle. 115 horsepower, 14 tons of iron, blade down. He put it in gear. The tracks bit into the granite gravel. The shift began. Nothing unusual about that, nothing to suggest what was coming. Except that Roy Callahan would not climb down from that Caterpillar D8 for 284 consecutive hours, 11 days and 22 hours. So on one of the most demanding, most consequential construction sites in American history, while the Sacramento River churned below him, while concrete poured 24 hours a day into the rising form of what would become the second tallest dam in the world, one operator on one machine held a line that no one else could hold. What drove him to that edge? What broke first, the machine, the man, or the landscape that was trying to swallow both of them? How do you fuel a human body across 12 consecutive days when the diesel in your tractor gets more attention than your own blood sugar? That answer starts here. If you want to see how Roy Callahan accomplished the impossible, please hit that like button. See that subscribe button? It's our exchange, your way of saying this reached me. Not about the action size, but its meaning. Hit it if this resonated, drop a like if it moved you. Bus and comment your thoughts on this story. And if you're the kind of viewer who wants to feel the tension even deeper, the exact second the recovery cable tightens, the moment steel starts to flex under load. The first inch of movement after hours of failure, the full uncut recovery sequence, join the membership. That's where we release extended 20-plus minute breakdowns, raw operational footage, the most intense recovery moments, all in detailed machine analysis that doesn't make it into the public edit. Let's complete this circle together. Now back to the story, but to understand how this happened, we have to go back. The year was 1938, and the Bureau of Reclamation had just awarded a $36.9 million construction contract to Pacific Constructors, Inc., a consortium of the best dam-building outfits in the American West. At the helm is General Superintendent Frank T. E. Crow, the engineer who had already driven Hoover Dam to completion and who ran every job site with the same philosophy: the schedule was law, and the schedule bent for nothing. At Shasta, Crow inherited a canyon and a timeline that were both brutal. For nearly 2 years, the site was defined by excavation. Millions of tons of granite were blasted, dug, and pushed off the foundation slopes to expose the solid bedrock that would anchor the dam's base. An entire labor city grew up around the site. Boomtowns called Project City, Summit City, and Pine Grove, packed with workers who had come north from Depression-era California, hoping for steady wages and a place to sleep. And in the middle of all that, the bulldozers ran. The Caterpillar D8, the 1H series, was the primary earth-moving machine at Shasta in 1940. Powered by Caterpillar's D13000 engine, producing approximately 115 flywheel horsepower and weighing in at around 14 tons bare, these machines were the industrial equivalent of the entire project's pulse. They cleared overburden. They shaped haul roads. They pushed material into the aggregate feeds that kept the conveyor belt loaded. So the belt itself ran day and night, 9.6 miles of moving rubber carrying gravel toward the mixing plant that was about to begin producing concrete at an unprecedented rate. Because on July 8, 1940, the concrete pour began, and once it started, it didn't stop. Cold joints, the structural weakness that forms when fresh concrete bonds imperfectly to a cooled previous pour were Frank Crow's nightmare. They compromised the monolithic integrity of the arch-gravity structure. On a dam designed to hold back a reservoir that could store 4.5 million acre-feet of water, integrity was not a negotiable word. Every section of foundation had to be prepared on schedule. Every overburden clearing run had to meet its window. When the concrete arrived, the ground had to be ready. Roy Callahan understood all of this in the practical, physical way that machine operators understand things, not in engineering reports, but in the vibration of the tracks beneath him and the sound of the blade hitting granite at the wrong angle. He had been on the Shasta site since 1939. A former logging equipment operator from the Shasta County foothills, he knew diesel machinery the way a horseman knows a horse. By feel, by sound, by the small warnings that came before anything failed. When a crewman on the adjacent D8 shift fell ill on the morning of September 3rd, Callahan agreed to extend. One additional shift, 12 more hours. Then the second machine went down. The failure happened on the north approach shelf, a section of cracked granite and decomposed rock sitting directly above a planned concrete form location. This shelf had to be cleared to a precise elevation before the form-setting crew could move in. The Bureau of Reclamation Engineers had given a 10-day window. Concrete would reach that section in roughly 11 days. So there was no margin. 2 D8s were assigned to the clearing operation. On day 2, the second machine developed a seized final drive, a catastrophic failure inside the planetary reduction gearing that controlled the left track. The machine drifted, then stopped. It would not move under power again until replacement parts arrived from Reading. In the logistics reality of wartime adjacent 1940, that meant days, not hours. Callahan's D8 was now the only machine on that shelf. He didn't climb down. The D13,000 engine, it turned out, was well suited for the test. Caterpillar had engineered it for extended continuous operation, and with the maintenance crew servicing the oil and filters every 8 hours, the engine held. It did not overheat. It did not drop power. The diesel was reliable in a way that felt, to the site crew watching from below, almost indifferent to the stakes. The operator was not a machine. By day 3, food was being passed up to Callahan in the cab by site workers. 10 plates of beans, bread, whatever the cookhouse had running. Black coffee and a steel thermos passed across the track frame. He did not leave the cab to eat. He slept in short, unconscious intervals. The kind of fractured rest that soldiers describe from combat conditions. 90 seconds of blackout and then full awareness again, the machine still idling, the blade still at operating depth. The canyon temperature hit 103 degrees by midday on September 8th, day 5. The open cab offered no protection from the sun. The constant vibration of the D8's track-mounted chassis had worked blisters across both palms and then worn those blisters to raw callus. How did he work the blade control levers through the pain the way a craftsman works through any discomfort? By narrowing the world down to the next pass, the next cut, the next push of granite debris toward the clearing area. By day 8, the blade mounting brackets were showing fatigue cracks, visible to the site welding crew during a refueling stop. The brackets had absorbed thousands of impact cycles against hard granite intrusions on the shelf face. The welding crew patched them with field beads applied while the engine idled. They worked around the operator. He kept the D8 moving on the flat sections while they worked, keeping the hydraulics warm, keeping the tracks from seizing in the accumulated granite dust. On day 9, the shelf broke. The cracked granite that had resisted standard blade approach gave way to an oblique angle technique Callahan had been developing by intuition, attacking the rock at the corner of the moldboard using repeated lateral pressure to fracture the stone face rather than pushing through it directly. It worked. The upper section of the shelf came down in fractured slabs. The decomposed material below pushed cleanly. By the afternoon of September 14th, 1940, the north foundation shelf was cleared. Roy Callahan cut the engine throttle to idle, sat still for a long moment, and climbed down from the Caterpillar D8 for the first time in 284 hours. The form-setting crew moved in within hours. Concrete reached that section of the dam on schedule. No cold joint. Frank Crow's timeline held. The site log entry for that clearing operation is 2 lines. It records the dates, the machine designation, and the volume of material moved. It does not note the duration of a single operator's continuous run. The Bureau of Reclamation was not in the habit of measuring human endurance. They were in the habit of measuring cubic yards per day. But what that 2-line entry conceals is a story that belongs to the larger history of what the American West was built on, not just concrete and steel, but the compressed and often invisible labor of men who understood machines more intimately than they understood rest, who had come from places where work was the only thing standing between them and nothing, and who poured themselves into a project so large it demanded everything they had. Shasta Dam was completed in 1945 and 22 months ahead of schedule. At 602 feet high, it was the second tallest concrete dam in the world at the time, behind only Hoover. It protected the Central Valley during the historic floods that followed the 108 inches of rain that fell in the 1940 season. It powered wartime industry. It irrigated the agricultural fields that fed a nation at war. And in a specific section of concrete near the north abutment, most poured precisely on schedule because a single Caterpillar D8 on a granite shelf refused to stop, there is a record that no monument marks, just concrete, and diesel smoke rising out of a canyon on a September morning, 11 days after a man decided he wasn't done yet. The machines we talk about on this channel are not just machines, they are the physical record of what people decided was worth doing, and how hard they were willing to push to do it. Roy Callahan's D8 is gone. The shelf it cleared is beneath millions of cubic yards of concrete. But the story still runs. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us preserve these machines and the histories behind them. And if you want the full tension, the extended operational cuts, the raw mechanical stress moments, and the unseen breakdown analysis, the membership is waiting for you. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Under this video, you'll see a thanks button. A small gesture with a big meaning. By pressing it, you're not only supporting the creation of more content like this, but you're also becoming part of the very exchange we've been talking about, giving and receiving in harmony. Well, it's not about the size of the gesture, it's about the meaning. A simple super thanks tells me these words reached you. It tells me that the effort, the late nights, and the discipline to bring this message forward mattered to someone on the other side of the screen.